There's so much going on with Israel, the United States, Yemen, Iran, and more, and scriptures indicate that calamity and war will continue to escalate in the Middle East. And also, is Islam taking over the world? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Endtime Show. Vince Stegall here with Doug Norvell. We're so happy you've joined us today. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. We need your help getting the word out in today's topic. Boy, we've got a lot to say about what's going on in the Middle East. Before we do that, we're happy to have our friend Philip Patrick from Birch Gold back with us to help us better understand what's going on with the economy, the national debt, and more. So, Philip, welcome back to the Endtime Show.
Thank you guys for having me.
It's always our pleasure. And before we get into that, we were talking right before the show, and unfortunately we had to go live, and I had to cut you off there. But with all this war going on, why buy gold when a major Middle East war seems to be imminent?
Listen, sadly, general volatility, wars, things like that, they shake up financial markets, and they tend to bode very well for precious metals prices. Obviously, with everything sort of reheating, if you will, in the Middle East, Hamas didn't agree. Well, they failed to meet their obligations to return Israeli hostages, and it appears to be on again. Gold now has hit a new all-time high. We're over $3,000 an ounce. But generally, climates like this, economic instability, geopolitical instability, wars, these things bode very well for safe haven commodities like gold and silver, and it's one of the reasons that they're moving so well in this climate.
Well, and of course the Federal Reserve is meeting this week, and they expect that interest rates will be steady, and they'll publicize kind of an update of what happened there in the long-term economic forecast. What should we anticipate, given this war that's brewing and whatever else is discussed there?
Look, investors are clearly and keenly waiting to see what happens with the Federal Reserve and their update. I think the likelihood is they're going to be watching very closely something called the Federal Reserve dot plot. And that's really where the Federal Reserve see interest rates by the end of the year. Historically, the dot plot has been incredibly inaccurate, but it's the closest thing we get to forward guidance from the Federal Reserve. Given the current climate, I'm talking, trade tensions, inflationary pressures, all the economic volatility that we're seeing, I think the Fed are going to lower their growth forecasts and acknowledge, I think, increased recession risks in this climate. They may revise their growth forecast down, which may mean lower interest rates in the future. But I think for right now, they're going to hold firm because, of course, inflation is still bubbling. But the administration are really going to want to see lower interest rates because that's going to allow them to help manage the debt burden and for Trump to try and grow the economy. But for right now, I think rates are going to stay where they are.
Okay, well, we saw the national debt report from February. I thought Trump was going to clean all this up within just a few months. Not really, but that's what a lot of expectations were. We see a record $30 billion in deficit spending just in 1 month. What are the implications of that for the administration, for the economy?
Listen, the job that President Trump and the team had is astronomical. And, the question is if they can do it over the 4 years. But we're finding out now the scale of the task. February spending was a $308 billion shortfall. But, that's just part of a cumulative $1.5 trillion deficit. And the surge we've been seeing is predominantly on the back of increased interest payments, but also increased spending on things like military programs, social security expenditures. But the problem is these escalating deficits, they lead to higher borrowing costs, which ultimately leads to dollar devaluation. And I think, Trump's fighting a Congress right now who just made a decision to pass a continuing resolution, essentially averting a government shutdown. But what that does is maintain the Biden administration's budget priorities for another 6 months. So what we've managed to cut out of the budget is so far, with Doge and everything else, is about $7 billion, which is a lot of money. But on the other hand, that's less than 1 day of deficit spending. So far, Doge have saved about $115 billion, which, like I say, is a lot of money, but it is a drop in the bucket, and it's nowhere near the spending cuts we need to try and stabilize the national debt. And I think that's going to be crucial to Trump's economic plan.
So basically, they've pretty much only been able to cut out that Monday morning Starbucks cup of coffee for most people.
The governmental equivalent. It's exactly right.
Well, with this latest, the latest figures on the consumer spending side of things, what's the trajectory of the economy?
Look, it's rough, and it was always going to be rough, right? We're dealing with a very large bubble. We've seen markets and the economy just grow and grow and grow, really since 2008, and that's unheard of in history. And ultimately, we're going to have to let some air out of that bubble if we're going to rebuild. And I think recessions are just a natural part of that. Now, signs are not that great. You mentioned sort of consumer sentiment, consumer spending. We've seen a dip in consumer sentiment. University of Michigan's consumer sentiment index fell to 57.9. That's the third consecutive monthly drop. Inflation expectations are rising as well. 1 year expectations now are at about 4.9%, up from 3.9. And here's the big concern when it comes to consumer expectations. They can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If American families fear an economic slowdown, then they tend to cut back their spending, right? And household spending cutbacks leads to reductions in business sales, which leads to a reduction in corporate profits, leads to layoff, and it becomes this sort of negative feedback loop. So recession alarm bells are ringing. But like I said, it might be welcome. It's long overdue. And if we're going to rebuild, we have to let the air out of the bubble. And I think that's what's happened.
So what do you mean by take control of the narrative? What are the efforts that we've seen for that?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. President Trump, I think, just needs to calm the markets down, right? His economic policy has three central parts, right? The first part is slashing waste, fraud, and abuse from government spending. Secondly, they need to stabilize the deficit. They want to get it down to about 3% of GDP. And finally, they want to use the combination of tariffs and industrial policy to onshore manufacturing, increase supply chains, and essentially spark an economic renaissance. What they need to do in the meantime is they need to calm the markets and set expectations. And it's largely what the administration are doing, right? Trump's telling us that, we're going to have to look at some big disruption. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, says, look, we got to go through a detox period. We've been hooked and addicted to low interest rates and cheap money for a long time. And I think that the administration just need to calm the markets, calm the American people, let us know what to expect so we can get through it and we can start to rebuild. And I think they've been doing a good job. The markets just need to calm down. I think there was an expectation that the second the markets would drop, Trump would backpedal. One thing's clear, we cannot backpedal if we're going to get through the problem. So people just need to understand there's going to be a period of transition, but we will get through it.
Philip, I remember not too long ago when folks were going, is the price of gold going to get over $2,000? And we just seen an all-time high. It's now over $3,000. What's driving those gold prices?
Look, it's a great question. It's everything we've been talking about since I've been coming on the show. I mean, central banks for the last 3 years have been setting records. The last quarter of last year, so this was after the presidential election here, was the single biggest quarter for gold buying by central banks. We have persistent inflation, both domestically in the US, but around the world. That's driving prices up. We have, of course, the threat of tariffs, the economic volatility. So this is the perfect storm that we're seeing for precious metal. We're talking war in the Middle East as well. Historically, wars, instability, all of this stuff, it disrupts global supply chains and it ultimately drives gold's prices up. The fundamentals for precious metals today I've never seen stronger. So projections now are raising for gold. Median predictions now are about 3,300 by the end of the year. That's about a 10% increase from where we are, and we expect it to keep going. So it's a very good time for people to protect a portion of their retirements with metals and hedge against some of this craziness we're seeing.
Well, Philip, we always appreciate your wisdom and all the information that you have. It's amazing to ask you a question and watch you go. So we always appreciate hearing from you and giving us some insight that we need to help folks process what's going on. So we appreciate you joining with us today.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Philip.
Thank you, Philip.
Everyone out there, you need to go to birchgold.com/endtime. They've got the guide to gold that you need. It's free. There's no obligation. It's just information. That way you can take that and figure out what you should do for you and your family. birchgold.com/endtime. Check it out today. It's probably the most important day to do that, Doug. We've got so much happening in the Middle East.
Yeah.
There's so much going on. It's unbelievable. Every time we open X or go to a news site, there's a new update, Doug.
And it's like you don't know what is true right now and what somebody's just reporting. So there's things coming in right now that we cannot confirm today that we may find out in a little while or tomorrow that it was absolutely true. But yes, there's so much going on, and it feels, this feels very much like we could be watching, like Philip was talking about, the perfect storm with the financial market. We could be watching the perfect storm in the Middle East for the Sixth Trumpet War.
Sixth Trumpet War.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we saw we've heard reports about the aircraft carriers.
Yeah.
There's definitely one there, is that correct?
Yes.
And then there's others that are saying that there's 2 more that have been sent. We can't.
3 more. Remember, I thought it was 2, but 4. You found out it was 3. Yeah.
Okay. So we don't know if that's true or not.
Right.
But what we do know is true. Of course, we know there's scripture that says a war is coming that's going to emanate out of the Euphrates River.
Right.
Now, we don't know how every single detail along the way that's going to happen. Nonetheless, that is coming. We're sure about that.
Yeah.
We're sure that a temple, the tabernacle is going to be, a third temple is going to be built on the Temple Mount. We know there's a peace treaty coming, which seems impossible today. I don't know if this shake-up now, I mean, there was a ceasefire, and of course, there was the Gaza attack over the weekend, and of course now with Yemen and reports of Iran. I don't know if that's going to push this narrative that one of these last 2 red heifers is going to get used in the ceremony just a few weeks from now. Could that be?
I mean, it could be. I mean, there's so many things that could be right now. It's like, man, it's coming down so fast, and there's so much going on. I can kind of begin to see things, Vince, shape up. Like we talk about it all the time. Okay, we don't know which is going to happen first, the war that kills 1/3 of mankind, or the peace treaty that's going to cause the third temple to be built, and things like the red heifer ceremony happening. All those things, I mean, we talk about this so much when we don't know which one's going to happen first. But I'm watching this develop, and I'm thinking, okay, well, who are the ones standing in the way of the peace treaty right now? It's the Houthis, it's the Hamas groups, it's Iran, it's Hezbollah. All these groups are the ones that are standing in the way of peace over there. So many of the other Arab countries around Israel, Vince, are happy to sign on to the peace treaty. That's what they want, as long as the Palestinian people get something in favor in return. And so now we're looking at this war ramping back up because Hamas did not do what they said they were going to do. Trump is doing what he said he was going to do, because he said, hey, if you don't release those hostages by a certain time, then all hell's going to break loose. And that's pretty much what's happening over there right now. There is so much going on. Reports today say that Israel has launched attacks back in against, of course, we know it happened in Gaza. We're going to see a little bit of that footage. We may have some right now as we're talking that we could show you just of what's been going on. But this first article we've got kind of brings all that together. So there's just some footage there that you can watch as we're talking about this. But the Israeli military launched extensive strikes against Hamas in Gaza overnight, and today we're hearing against Hezbollah in Lebanon today. And then it says Hamas's refusal to release those hostages and rejection of multiple mediation proposals that the United States government has been involved in and tried to put together. So all that's failed now. The ceasefire's over. They found out that Hamas was indeed trying to rebuild and regain some weapons and ways to attack Israel again. They even found out that they were working for another October 7th type attack. So you got all that going on, and now Israel has talked to President Trump. They've all agreed, yes, let's just go ahead and carry this forward. So this new operation, Vince, is called Operation Strength and Sword. And it was coordinated with the United States and with the White House officials warning that groups like Hamas, the Houthis, and Iran will face consequences. It says the Israeli strikes reportedly killed several senior Hamas figures, and so now the United States, because these Hamas leaders have been killed, the United States believes that Iran will want to retaliate because of that, and that may be one reason why we're seeing the beefed up military presence over there, Vince, if indeed that is happening. It says, including with those Hamas figures, including a deputy minister and top official of Gaza's interior ministry. Okay, so we're talking about Gaza directly now. And the IDF warned civilians before they attacked in Beth Hian and Gaza. I don't know how you say these words. I'm sorry if I chopped them up, but that's the best I can do. And to evacuate in these areas immediately due to intensified combat. So they gave a warning to get people out of there. Schools near Gaza border have been closed, and the Israeli leadership convened for high-level security assessments. They didn't even tell everybody in the IDF, Vince, what was going on. They thought that it would be better to let a lot of people not be in on this so that it would be more of a surprise. It says that Israeli officials claim Hamas was using the ceasefire to rearm and to plan new attacks, and the UN Security Council is set to discuss this crisis while Israel representatives reaffirmed that their commitment to recovering hostages held by Hamas for 527 days, and that's why they're doing this. Enough is enough. We want those hostages back, dead or alive, and now they are wreaking havoc, not only in Gaza, but reports today saying also in Lebanon with Hezbollah. And then, of course, the United States have this thing going on with the Houthis. And some things that were rumors yesterday, we found out today they're true. So we can talk about that whenever you want, but you look like you have a question.
I have so many questions, Doug. Starting with, how in the world do we reconcile today's show with the show you and I did last on Friday, saying Hamas has agreed to peace? So the United States goes in there and they talk to Hamas and they say that they've agreed to peace, and Israel's upset about it. Was all that trickery? Was that even legit conversation? Did the United States do that to throw Hamas off?
I think that it may be a little bit of both, because for one thing, remember, we reported on Friday that Israel was very upset with the United States for even talking to Hamas, because they felt like we were negotiating with terrorists, and they're like, you can't negotiate with these guys. There's just no negotiation. But perhaps it was a little smoke being blown in our direction too by Hamas saying, oh yeah, we'll agree to these things for this amount of time while they're rebuilding and reconstructing and getting ready to attack. But yeah, obviously all that is off the table now, regardless of what might be behind it. And it's just, right now, it's like chaos over in the Middle East right now. But there's also like a peace and a calm over there too. It's really strange when you talk to people that are involved in all this. You're finding out, well, a lot of people are like, no, we're good. On the Israeli side, they're like, look, we're totally okay with all this, because they want to eradicate, get rid of the Hamas terror organization, and then they can deal with the Palestinian people. And when I say deal with the Palestinian people, I mean they can find a way to negotiate and make peace with the people there.
Well, it gets a little confusing because
really
we talk about peace and we talk about war, and I know that we have so many people that email in asking and saying, which one is it going to be? And we're like, well, if we knew, we would tell you, but we just don't. Scripture, we have no problem saying we don't know. And on this one, we don't know which one's first, but boy, it's like a horse race. It seems like one's going forward, and we're going, it's about to be peace, and then it's about to be war. So,
yeah.
And we haven't even talked about Iran yet.
I know.
I think we need to pause and take a drink of First Cup coffee before we even try to tackle that subject.
First Cup right now.
If you don't have First Cup coffee, you can get it today. Of course, they're a Christian-owned Patriot Coffee Company right here out of the Houston, Texas area. They have 11 different roasts, each one named after a specific piece of American history. Go to firstcup.com and use code Endtime to get 10% off of any roast you want. They've got whole bean, they've got ground, and they've got the pods. If you're a Keurig type person, I won't hold it against you. I prefer the whole bean myself, but either way, get whatever you like, and I'm sure you'll love it. Firstcup.com, use code Endtime. You can get 10% off today, and if you subscribe, they'll give you another 10% off, so go check that out right now. Doug, the partners that have joined up with us, like Birch Gold, like First Cup, part of why they've joined up with us is because they believe in our ministry, and they pay us to tell people about them. We're not being shy about that. Right. And so they believe in End Time Ministries, and they are helping us out, and so we want to tell people about them. And of course, we've experienced them firsthand ourselves, and I strongly recommend everyone that we recommend here. So thankful for the partnership that we have there. Regarding Iran, I don't even know where to begin on Iran, because it seems like we've talked about Iran a year ago, how there could be war, and perhaps Biden was going to do some things before he's out of office, and here we are again, and there's speculation that a lot could be gearing up with Iran. And of course, we point out the Euphrates River, that's largely in Iran, and who knows what all could happen even before this year, Doug. And if the final 7 years began, I'll just highlight real quick here, that would mean that, I mean, it's 2025. I'm not great at math, but I can tell you that would mean the return of the Lord would be in 2032 if the final 7 years began this year, which means the 3.5 years of peace would end in 2028. Now, people can figure that out for themselves. Just an interesting speculation.
Yeah.
Whatever that could mean.
Well, and of course, we're not saying that's going to happen, but
no,
it could happen. So we're not putting dates on anything, so y'all don't get excited. We're not doing that. Even though we're excited today, I mean, I'm a little fired up about some of the stuff that's happening, because it seems like it's just coming at us so fast right now. You know, and so this next article talking about Iran, President Trump has said, Vince, that any weapon used by these terror organizations against the United States government, he considers that to be directly linked to Iran, because they're the ones that furnish the weapons to these terrorist organizations. And so President Trump's been pretty clear that if we're being attacked by people like the Houthis in Yemen, that he is blaming Iran, because they fund them, they arm them, and they pretty much are an extension of Iran. So that's kind of where we are right now. And so during the excursions yesterday, or last night, I guess you should say, for Israel, whenever they were bombing Gaza, we had a situation where the United States Navy went to war pretty much with Yemen and its capital, and we did very targeted strikes with our weapons. Now, the Houthis have come back and said, oh, we hit, you know, these warships, and we did this and we did that. Well, I saw one of the admirals today that he said in a report, he said, yeah, the Houthis are full of misinformation, and he said they very seldom ever even get close to where their target is when they're firing. So he didn't act like anything had hit any American ships. Not saying that it hasn't since then. I'm just saying that they said this morning that had not happened. So some of those reports coming out of Yemen were not true. But the reports of what we've done have been true, apparently, because Saudi sources have claimed that the United States sank the Iranian intelligence ship, the Zagros, while Israel launched this extensive attack against Gaza. After uncovering the alleged Hamas plot for another large-scale attack, this Gaza ceasefire being officially over, we took out this ship that was a surveillance ship, and it's not only a surveillance ship, but it's like it's a high-tech surveillance ship, and it was something that Iran's been very proud of. They've sailed it around, showing it off to everybody. And it's just very important that this happened and that they actually sank this thing, from what I understand.
Doug, Yemen has been involved, it seems like, since October 7th or shortly thereafter.
Mm-hmm.
We've posed the question in the past, will Islam rule the world?
Yeah.
And of course, Yemen and Iran and many of the countries around there are Muslim-controlled countries. Do we see Yemen and Iran and maybe even Russia and China joining in to fight the United States? Could that happen with this conflict?
I don't know that some of these countries would be able to do a whole lot. Like, there may not be much left of Hezbollah or Hamas by the time all this starts. But yeah, yes, absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. Maybe this is the way to push for that peace process, is when this war happens, a lot of these Islam terrorist organizations, maybe they'll just be done with, and that'll be over, because then we'll have the other Islamic countries wanting to push for this peace process with Israel. And of course, once 1/3 of mankind's been killed in a war that a lot of people are going to think is pointless and was ridiculous to start with, then yeah, I think that we would see things like that come out of that peace agreement could happen. But I think definitely China and Russia could get involved because they're allies with Iran, and like Trump's threat to Iran right now, saying that, we're going to target you if we get hit by these terror organizations, and then we take out this ship. I would think their allies are sitting there going, man, if they get in a war with this, it's like NATO would have to get involved, with some of their countries if they got involved in it. So we could see things escalate. If we're not already there, we could see it happen very soon.
Well, and Doug, I didn't think about it until right now as you've been talking that don't forget that Ukraine sold equipment that we provided to them on the black market, and that equipment was found at our Mexican border.
Yes.
And we don't know what all got into the United States and what did not.
Yeah.
So
and we're talking like Stinger missiles and rocket.
Take out a plane.
Yeah, like shoulder-fired rockets that can take out commercial aircraft.
We're going to talk more about that and some of these Islamic communities that are coming up all around the Dallas area and even the United States. So don't go anywhere.
We got a great clip from Marco Rubio.
Oh yeah, the Marco Rubio clip. You've got to see that. We'll be right back with it. Don't go anywhere.
A reminder of the breaking news this hour. At least 22 people are reported to have died in a strike in Gaza.
The rise of Islam.
I'm trying to bring answers for so many families desperately.
Is the Israel-Hamas-Iran conflict World War III? So let's talk about the four horsemen. What do these horses symbolize? These are the four spirits of the heavens which go forth from standing before the Lord of all the earth. In the end time, the true people of God will not be weak, anemic, and defeated. These prophesied events are revealing we are quickly approaching the time of the Great Tribulation right now.
Now streaming on OneSource and available to order at endtime.com/screen. Go to endtime.com/screen or call 800-ENDTIME.
What if you could understand Bible prophecy? Dave Robbins, the host of the End Time Show's TV and radio programs, is holding a free prophecy conference near you. Gain peace and understanding about what the Bible says concerning end-time prophecy. Call 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com/events to see when Dave will be in a location near you.
Welcome back to the End Time Show. Vince Stegall here with Doug Norvell. Don't forget, we need your help. When you share this video, it goes a long way in getting the message out. Your friends and family need to know what's going on in the Middle East and what the Bible has to say about it. So when you share this video, 30 minutes into the show, Facebook, YouTube, all those different platforms that we're on, Rumble, they realize that someone's been watching a video for 30 minutes and they're sharing it, so it must be worth sharing, so they will help boost it a bit. So you can help us out a lot by sharing, and then of course giving us a thumbs up or a heart, and even commenting. In fact, go ahead and comment right now if you want to hear more about what's happening with, I guess, with the Islamic cities going on around the United States. Just put I want to learn more. Put that in the comments. We need your help. So if you want to learn more about that type of information, don't say anything about Islam because they probably won't like that, but just say I want to learn more in the comments. And when you type that whole sentence in there, the radars go off on the algorithms and it helps us out a lot. So do that right now. Doug, can you imagine any other year, I guess you could say year, even day of recent, that there would be talks about JFK files being released and we wouldn't even mention it until the second half of the show? And it's not even planned to talk about today. I'm throwing that out there.
I know. Well, bonus. I mean, I was hoping that something would break, before we came on the air so that we could talk about it a little bit. But there hadn't been a whole lot. I mean, there's been some things that people were saying, but I'd like to be able to make sure that I'm telling everybody exactly what I'm seeing whenever we're talking about that. So I didn't see anything that made me comfortable enough to come into the mic today and talking about the JFK files being released. But I sure hope that there's a lot more information than what was released in the Epstein files so far.
Or what wasn't released.
Yeah, exactly.
When I saw that announcement I'm still waiting on the Epstein files,
yeah,
and
exactly.
we just act like it didn't even ever happen now.
I know.
Which is annoying. But
it's a little frustrating, but maybe it's about to happen. Who knows? Now, before we move on to this next continuing saga here in our backyard with these Islamic cities, now we've got another one that we're going to talk to y'all about today. Before we do that, I want to show that, because I thought this was great by Marco Rubio. A lot of people have questions about Marco Rubio. They're not sure how they feel about Marco Rubio, but this was great. He was on Face the Nation on Sunday, and if you haven't seen this, he took some heat about what's going on with the Houthis in Yemen. So before we move on, I really wanted to show you this, and I thought this was phenomenal. So let's watch this clip.
First of all, the problem here is that this is a very important shipping lane, and in the last year and a half, the last 18 months, the Houthis have struck or attacked 174 naval vessels of the United States, attacking the U.S. Navy directly 174 times, and 145 times they've attacked commercial shipping. So we basically have a band of pirates, with guided precision anti-ship weaponry, and exacting a toll system in one of the most important shipping lanes in the world. That's just not sustainable. We are not going to have these people controlling which ships can go through and which ones cannot. And so your question is, how long will this go on? It will go on until they no longer have the capability to do that.
Well, what does U.S. intelligence tell us at this point? Because the U.S. had been conducting strikes for some time, but has not stopped the Houthis. So
No.
What's going to be different right now? Do you have more fidelity in the intelligence that would make this more successful?
Well, those strikes were retaliation strikes. So they launched one missile, we hit the missile launcher, or we sent something to do it. This is not a message. This is not a one-off. This is an effort to deny them the ability to continue to constrict and control shipping. And it's just not going to happen. We're not going to have these guys, these people with weapons able to tell us where our ships can go, where the ships of all the world can go, by the way. It's not just the U.S. We're doing the world a favor.
Yeah.
We're doing the entire world a favor by getting rid of these guys and their ability to strike global shipping. That's the mission here, and it will continue until that's carried out. That never happened before. The Biden administration didn't do that. All the Biden administration would do is they would respond to an attack. These guys would launch one rocket, we'd hit the rocket launcher. That's it. This is an effort to take away their ability to control global shipping in that part of the world. That's just not going to happen anymore.
And it could
this will continue until that's finished.
It could involve ground raids?
Well, those are military decisions to be made, but I've heard no talk of ground raids. I don't think there's a necessity for it right now. I can tell you that as of last night, some of the key people involved in those missile launches are no longer with us, and I can tell you that some of the facilities that they use are no longer existing, and that will continue. Look, it's bottom line, easy way to understand it, okay? These guys are able to control what ships can go through there. They've attacked the U.S. Navy 174 times.
Yeah.
They've attacked the United States Navy. We're not going to have people sitting around with the missiles attacking the U.S. Navy. It's not going to happen, not under President Trump.
I love it because she tried her best to try to say, you know, we haven't done anything with this before, so what makes this any different? And man, he let into her and let her know, look, that was with other administrations. This is different, and it is different. It feels different. A lot of people are saying it's different. You even sent me a video of who was it? Ron Paul this morning. Was that who it was? And he was saying that, you know, he said this is so different than Trump's first run of office. Whenever now it's like he goes to military first. Well, he's watched all this over the past 4 years, just like we have, and been frustrated by the fact that this keeps happening. I mean, they've attacked our military that many times, and we're just sitting back and letting that happen. And like he said, not under Trump's watch. That's not going to happen. And, you know, I'm not a warmonger by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm glad to see strength come back into office. And I'm glad to see that the United States will be respected. And I'm also glad to see that prophecy is coming to pass, because the wings of the eagle are working side by side with Israel right now, fighting against enemies that want to eradicate both of us, want to take us both out. There were photos and there were chants of these people with their rifles in the air in Yemen, and they were saying, death to America, death to Israel. Those are our enemies, folks. And so now we're pulled into this, whether we want to be or not. Here we go. But we're standing side by side with Israel, like Scripture says. So anyway, I'm a little fired up about that. I'm kind of patriotic that way too. You know, I'm an American, and I'm a red-blooded American, and I'm happy right now that our country is standing up.
Well, I might rile you up a little bit more.
Probably.
Why do we feel like churches are a little scared to talk about these things?
Well, I mean, for one thing, Vince, you know, they're afraid because of the whole you got to keep church and state separate thing, and they think they can't talk about political things from the pulpit. As a matter of fact, we've got a close friend that has a program called The Political Pulpit, where he talks about both these things. And what was our program called for so many years? Politics and religion. And so, I mean, there's nothing that says that they don't go hand in hand, because they do. Politics are all through the Bible, and especially here in the end time, it's, you know, Revelation 13, that's all that's about, is world politics and this global government that comes down. And so, I mean, a lot of churches may be afraid because they don't know what to talk about. They don't understand how this is prophetic, and maybe that's why they don't talk about it. We have that understanding, thanks to the Lord and the understanding that He has given us throughout the years from the teachings from Pastor Baxter, and then it's been passed down to us, the understanding that's there in Scripture, where it goes hand in hand with politics and religion. And so, you know, we're blessed that the Lord has opened up that understanding to this ministry, and we've been able to help people understand so much. I mean, there's people in the chat yesterday that were new to the chat that don't understand some of the things we're talking about. And the people that have been here for a while said, I used to be like you, but, you know, I've listened to this program and I've learned and I've seen where it's at in the Bible, and I see how, you know, these headlines are happening. And if you just hang around long enough, you'll learn too, and you'll be glad you did. So anyway, I don't know if that answered your question or not, but I am riled up.
You answered it well, and you mentioned our friend Pastor Joshua Navarrete, who hosts the Political Pulpit, which, by the way, is now available on OnlySource.
There you go.
If you're an OnlySource subscriber, in fact, it may be available for everyone. I don't know if you even have to be a subscriber to watch the Political Pulpit there. It's available now. So he's on a quest to help pastors better understand that they can talk about political things in the pulpit. Yeah. They don't have to be so timid. But in addition to that, he's reporting on things that are happening in politics and religion. And I know his latest episode is about Conor McGregor calling out immigration, the immigration crisis, and Trump's deportation plan being blocked. So that's available on OnlySource right now. So y'all need to go check it out. Political Pulpit by Pastor Joshua Navarrete. It's on OnlySource. I'll put the link in the comments, but you can go to OnlySource, watch.osn.tv. Political Pulpit's featured there on the browse page, so go check that out. I think that everyone out there should go watch every episode available. There's 11 episodes right now. It's airing 3 days a week, Doug. So 3 days a week, you're going to get the political pulpit on Only Source. It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I believe is the schedule. So excited about political pulpit.
Nice.
And another show available now on Only Source. Check it out.
There you go. And more to come.
More to come. That's right. All right. So
moving parts.
moving parts. How about, speaking of moving parts, is Islam taking over Texas or what?
Man, I mean, this is a story that just surprises me at how much this is happening and how many different places. You know, I heard a long time ago that Katy, Texas, that this was happening down there, and I'm thinking, man, how is that even going on down around Katy? Well, here it is now in our backyard, and I mean, this is concerning, and some of the things that are being told to the people doing this, the leaders of what is it called again? Epic.
Epic, yeah. Epic City.
Yeah, what this leader of the Epic City has been told from the mayor of Plano. We got a video of that shortly that we're going to see. But I wanted to tell everybody about this is a different place now in Aubrey, Texas.
Aubrey, where's Aubrey?
Well, that's a good question. It's north of here.
Between here and Oklahoma.
Yeah, and we're talking about where were we at the other day? We're talking about Josephine and now Blue Ridge and Aubrey. And so all this is very interesting, and it's all right here. It's like they're traveling up Highway 78 from here. But it says Texas is facing a strategic ideological. Thank you. Take over. Sometimes
I don't know where you're at, but
I'm at the very top of that. With the Islamic groups that are establishing these self-sustaining strongholds under the guise of community centers and outreach.
Yeah.
Did you find out where Aubrey is?
I did. It's north of Fort Worth.
Okay.
Not quite Winsboro.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been through that area before.
It's in like cowboy area.
That is the way that I go out to go hog hunting.
Yeah,
which is interesting. They better watch out because there's going to be pigs everywhere.
Well, that's...
Can't have that in a Muslim community.
Doug, I'm the one that's supposed to make people laugh.
I'm sorry.
No. Islamic Center of Aubrey, they've acquired 25 acres. They're going to build this Islamic hub there, similar to Epic City. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of what we saw with the Europe Islamic enclaves that have occurred. So
yeah,
it's not just they're building a church, Doug.
Right.
This is not what's happening.
Yeah.
I think back to quote unquote Christian groups like what we saw in Waco probably before I was born. I don't remember what year that was, but
you were born.
Okay,
when that
I was
happened.
just young.
That was you were very young.
Yeah, and someone that was near where I was raised, Jim Jones. I think about groups like that it wasn't just that we were coming together for worship, but they're actually building a community. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole lot more to talk about there, including, you're not going to believe what the mayor of Plano allegedly said to the Epic City pastor, leader. You're going to want to see this clip, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after the break.
Especially if you're local. The Roman government controlled the world, so many people were looking for a different Messiah, a rescuing Messiah. Remember the story of the woman at the well. The woman saith unto him, I know that Messiah cometh, which is called Christ. And Jesus said unto her, I that speak unto thee am he. Jesus very clearly stated that he was God and that he was the Messiah. We're even more blessed because we haven't seen those things, but yet we believe. When Jesus cried out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? He knew every one of these prophecies had to be fulfilled. He said, it is finished.
Now streaming on one source and available to order at endtime.com/revealed. Go to endtime.com/revealed or call 800-ENDTIME.
Welcome back to the Endtime Show. Vince Stigall here with Doug Norvell. We're so happy you've joined us. Don't forget, we need your help sharing, commenting, liking, all that. And of course, you need to go to Only Source right now. We've got our brand new Grace series available, 8 episodes that explore the topic of grace throughout the Old Testament and New Testament. It's for every believer out there, whether you've been walking with the Lord for a few days or a few years or decades even. It's going to bless your life. Dr. Jim Littles did a wonderful job with grace. You need to go check it out. And as mentioned before the break, brand new show, Political Pulpit, is now available on OnlySource as well. So go check out all the new content on OnlySource. And Doug, I can't wait for Dave's new Endtime original, America's Prophesied Future, to be up there as well, which will be coming very, very soon. And all the things, Doug. So much brewing here with OnlySource, with Israel, with what's happening in the United States, and even around here, Doug. Right before the break, you said you'll want to see this clip, especially if you're local, local specifically to Plano, Texas, but the Dallas area in general. Yeah. What did you mean by that?
Well, I mean, we've got these leaders. Well, you want to just go to the video real quick?
Yeah,
let's just go to the video.
Let's explain. This is the leader of the Epic City that's going up in Josephine, and they have a mosque here in Plano that's 3 miles from here. I mean, we could get there in just a few minutes. Yeah. There's Epic City yard signs out in people's yards all around the area here promoting this. And so they're just a few miles from here. And I guess this is a clip from one of their gatherings just this last weekend. So this is from a few miles from Endtime Ministries in Plano, Texas. Let's check it out.
Here we go.
Today we have our annual Interfaith Iftar dinner. As you're aware, Epic does a Interfaith Iftar dinner every single Ramadan. And alhamdulillah, this year we had the mayors of Richardson, the mayors of Plano, the city councilman of Wiley, the chief of police and the fire, a lot of elected officials. Alhamdulillah, they came and we had a very good Interfaith dinner. All of the mayors, actually, all of them, they presented us plaques of recognition for the civic services that Epic is doing. And alhamdulillah, they testified that Epic is doing what no other faith organization in this entire area is doing. You're probably aware that on social media, there's a lot of negative campaigns against our particular masjid, Epic, because of our project, Epic City, right? And a lot of the far right are riling up hatred. Today, an hour ago, I pulled the mayor aside, I said, you know, Mayor, you're aware of what's going on, and you know that these are all lies. You know, what they're saying about us is not true. The mayor literally his whole face changed. He goes, I know you guys, don't worry. I have your back. Anybody says anything, you can tell him to call me and I'm going to defend you guys. The mayor himself told me this. I know you guys. I see what you're doing. Anybody has a negative complaint, you tell him to call my office. I'm going to defend you.
So there you go. Allegedly, the mayor of Plano told him, I got your back, don't worry. Anybody messes with you, they go through me first.
So what does that mean, Doug?
Well, to me, it sounds like that they have political backing for what they're doing. When our own governor has said of Texas, we're not going to allow this to happen, we're certainly not going to allow these cities to be set up with Sharia law in those cities. Now, I've told you about my friend who is a Plano police officer.
Which we should highlight, Doug, was the neighborhood right next to the location that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's probably the neighborhood that this gentleman lives in because it is right there. And that police officer was told they didn't need the Plano police coming there, that they had Sharia law there and that they didn't need him and they weren't going to let him respond to a domestic violence call that he had there. And he told him, no, this is still the United States of America and this is Texas. And if you don't get out of the way, I can have backup here in just a couple of minutes and we'll come in by force. And so they let him come in. But this is the kind of things that they're wanting to set up. And it's the same thing going on with this new area too. This article says that this isn't just a religious development, it's a calculated expansion strategy known as Hijra, the Islamic migration doctrine meant to spread Islam through immigration. And Texas has now become a key target for whatever reason. For a long time, Vince, we've had one of the largest Islamic mosques here in Richardson, which is just our neighboring city here. And I used to work right across the street from it. And that thing, we had to hire a police officer for our parking lot just so we could get back in our own parking lot at lunch because they would come and take over the parking lot. And I mean, it's crazy, but this kind of thing is happening now. For whatever reason, they want to come in and do this. And the reason why this is something that we should be worried about is because, like it says in this article, that this is, they have the ability to have all these funds brought in so they can pretty much do whatever they need to do because they're getting funded by, you know, Islam and by countries that are pouring money into their organization. And it says that it's really laying the groundwork for Islamic takeover of these American cities and that they will become unrecognizable when this happens. And so I was told by one of our listeners today, I received an email that said there is a city council meeting that is happening August 1st in Blue Ridge against the Epic City and the Sharia law coming into that area, and that people should be contacting their city council members, and they should be going to that meeting and letting their voices be heard that we don't want these type of areas in our communities. And so it's interesting because the people's voices are going to need to be heard. But, you know, I mean, what have we watched with government and things like this? That's what worries me here. Why is he telling this guy, oh, you got my back, or I've got your back? Is he receiving something back for this? It makes you wonder. I'm not saying that's happening, but man, it makes me wonder. But the reason why this is dangerous is a story that we were going to talk about Friday and we ran out of time because we were doing open line, is that there is a New Jersey Islamic city, and they have claimed this thing as the capital of Palestine in America. They call it Little Palestine, and they've even raised the Islamic flags there, okay? On American soil, Islamic flags fly high in this city called Paterson in New Jersey. And the interesting thing about it is they have now gotten so much power because they've been elected into city offices. So these Muslim immigrants that are coming here that want to change the face of America, they are doing this and taking over. This is exactly what they're planning on doing here in Texas. That article says that that's exactly what they're going to do. And they're going to come in, and they did the same thing in New Jersey. They set up their own schools, community centers, their mosque, and they call this place Little Palestine, and they enforce it with Sharia law.
Doug, I've heard stories over the years about Christian churches getting targeted and mayors or city leaders defending them. Mm-hmm. I guess with the Muslim community specifically, it's not that obviously that mosque has been there in Plano for probably longer than I've lived here, decades.
Yeah.
It's not that anyone has a problem with them having a mosque and expressing their religious beliefs as they gather for worship, however they choose. It's the community aspect that has the potential of Sharia law being established, which is illegal. They cannot do that in the United States. So obviously, many would say that that's just not going to happen. It's illegal. But like you said, your friend, a cop, pulls up in there and they say, we don't need you to patrol this area. We've got Sharia law. And he's like, actually, no, that's not how it's going to work. Well, so these are the same people. These are the people that are in that community where they go to that mosque, that are building that city, that has rumored that they want to establish Sharia law. So I guess where's the line on, some will cry this is hate speech and that we're saying that all Muslims are bad people or whatever. I know where we're at, and I know I don't have to defend us, but I know that people are going to say things like that. Where's the line at on what's too far for something like this? Is it just Sharia law, or?
Well, I mean, it's really, Vince, the whole thing about immigration and coming into this country is that when we come into these countries, or when people come into our country, the whole thing is you're supposed to go through an assimilation process to where you become an American. You're coming here to escape whatever tyranny you're escaping from, or poverty, or whatever it is, and you're supposed to come into America and become American. I mean, we're not having people come in and migrate into this area to make America become Islamic. You know, you're not going to come here and make it into what you fled from is kind of the deal. And that's what the difference is here. They're wanting to come in and change the face of America. Like we've seen what's happened, showed a video the other day about what's going on in Europe. And Christians can't even walk down the street without being assaulted by the people because they walk into an Islamic neighborhood with crosses and Bibles. And the other thing is, Vince, you think about if you go into, I mean, we have friends that do this. This is what they've been called to do. They go into these countries that are Islamic countries, and they have to go in there under the cover of not being Christian, that they're doing something else, because if people find out they're Christian, they could be killed. And especially if they find out that they're teaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, they're going to be killed. But in America, we allow people to come in and have freedom of religion, freedom of speech. If you become an American citizen, you can do all those things, but just don't try to push it on the community you live in and, you know, create your own laws and an area to where if somebody went in there, they could be punished by Sharia law. If there was, let's say a UPS driver had to go in there, and a female UPS driver had to go in there, and her head's not covered, and you know UPS drivers wear shorts, and so a woman comes in there, she's wearing shorts. Under Sharia law, she's breaking Sharia law. And she could just drive into a community not realizing what she's driving into. And if there's Sharia law set there, she could be punished for wearing shorts in that area or not having her head covered. I mean, those are the things we're talking about. That's how this can progress. And we're watching them change laws in other places as well. You know, they're changing things and being able to. Is it Dearborn where they actually have a Sharia court in Dearborn, Michigan?
I don't know that. That is the Muslim capital of the United States. But
yeah,
I don't know about the.
And you know, I mean, the thing is, like you said before, we've watched Christian organizations, you know, where the government has called us domestic terrorists, but we've got an organization coming in buying up property saying we're going to make this a Muslim community only and have all this, and then Sharia law is going to be placed here. And that's what the concern is. That's what is scary, because we're, like you said, you don't really know who's coming in there. The mosque across the street from where I worked for years, they arrested people who had a money organization in Richardson that was funding Hamas. And they were doing it through channeling it through that mosque. So that was that particular mosque. I was standing there the day FBI agents raided there and arrested a lot of people and took them off because of the funding that was going on for terrorist organizations.
But it's not like they have flyers out saying Epic City is going to be ran by Sharia law.
No, they're kind of keeping it quiet, Vince.
Yeah.
They don't want everybody to know that.
So there's nothing illegal about having a community like they're doing per se. Of course, if they restrict who can live there, that's a whole nother conversation about real estate law and such. But there's a lot to unpack here, Doug, and we're out of time, so we can't do it. One thing we know for sure, John 1:5 says, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. So we can rest assured that it doesn't matter what comes our way. Jesus is our only source, and we win in the end. We win. This isn't about our country or any other country or any other religion necessarily, but we know that if we trust in the Lord above everything else, you're on the winning side. So do that today. If you haven't, you need to go to endtime.com/reborn, learn what it means to be born again like the disciples were. And of course, thank you so much for joining us. We're at the end, but you can get all this and more at endtime.com and watch.osn.tv. We'll see you right back here tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central Time.